Hey, welcome to Make Your Money Matter. I'm your host, Brad Barrett. Let me ask you, did you make any New Year's resolutions for 2024? I mean, the popular get in shape, lose weight maybe, or maybe they were character type things like being a more patient person or being a better servant to others. These are all great. And if you need a change as it relates to those I mentioned, go for it. But because this is a show about understanding your investments, your money, your finances, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. I want to talk about some New Year's resolutions as it relates to those things. But before we get started, make sure you smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. All right, let's get into it. So my producer, Brian, and I, we had some fun with this. We sat down, we kind of put together a list, if you will, of the 10 top financial New Year's resolutions. And I want to share that with you. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on each of these to maybe help you maybe better understand them and hopefully encourage you to think about and take action on one of these as it relates to your situation, because some of these may not pertain to you, but we wanted to make sure the list was broad. So here we go. Number one, and I'm going to start out with this right away, pay off debt. Now, obviously, I think it's important that when you talk about debt, and by the way, we have a course on this. You can find it in the description box below. I think it's really important as you talk about any type of investing, money, savings. If you have any debt right now, that's kind of key point number one. And I should say this list of 10 I'm going to bring up, it's not in any particular order of priority or seniority, but the debt one I did want to lead off with, because I do think that if you're ever thinking like, hey, should I invest money, save money? My first question is going to be, do you have debt? And if you do, take a look at our course or figure out a way to make sure you manage your debt accordingly. Number two, save more money. Now, obviously, some of these are going to be pretty on the nose and obvious, but I think saving more money and having a goal to put some money aside has a lot to do with being financially savvy, especially heading into a new year. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because there's a strategy I think that'll pertain to another one here on the list that we'll bring up. Number three, I always think you should improve your financial literacy. Books are incredible. Follow economists, I think, are really good too, because with economists, you're able to actually get bipartisan. So you're not getting an agenda being thrown at you. I've shared this a lot on our show last year, but a book I've loved, I've read a couple times now, is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Great book, check it out. But number three is improve your financial literacy. Number four, create a budget. I think, when I talk about the word budget, it kind of scares people sometimes. And I also have noticed in the new year resolution, when it comes to a budget, be careful not to get too specific on it. I was talking to a client the other day and they were doing the envelope theory, which, have you heard of that before? You kind of have an envelope for every category of expenditures. You put your cash in there and that's what you use for the month. And that works, except for the old saying of you have a plan until you get punched in the face, right? By Mike Tyson. So it's like life's going to throw you some curveballs. So maybe replace my word of budget with patterns and notice some patterns. So if you have some patterns going on where you're overspending on maybe it's little things like coffee or something like that, redirect it so you're able to save some money and have some money left over at the end of the month. All right, number five, save for retirement. I don't know what age you're in or what stage of life you're in, but this should be for most everybody. And retirement, by the way, doesn't necessarily need to be you're 65 years old. It could be when you're 30 or 40 and you want to become financially free and just stop working. Either way, start today in saving for that. Utilize accounts that are tax deferred, things like 401ks, IRAs. You can also use after tax, like trust accounts, individual accounts you can set up, or Roth type features, but start putting away for yourself tomorrow. Number six, I always share this. It's a topic of any new client I bring on right now is starting a side hustle. Now, I should be clear that be very careful on this side hustle, right? Like social media nowadays wants you to start like every different side hustle, whether it's ATMs or, some drop ship thing through Amazon. All fine. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not throwing shade at those things necessarily, but there's a saying I like to say that before you go buy another house, make sure your current house is in order. And by the way, see numbers 1 through 5. Pay off your debt, put some money aside, take care of those things first, and then move into number 6. But it is important. If you have the time and you are healthy and able to, absolutely. This wonderful economy we have allows for other income sources. Absolutely. Number 7, spend less. So obviously this is a dovetail on a previous one. But when it comes to spending less, there's a rule that I kind of want to put in place here that I think helps. We're sitting here in January. Go pull up your credit card statements or whatever card you spend on mostly. Go pull up the last 12 months, January through December of last year. Add up all the expenses, divide by 12. It gets you your monthly spend. Then just multiply that by 25%. Just use that number and say, this is what I'm going to put away and not spend. reduce your spend by that. And then all of a sudden now you're able to use that as a tool to go into the next month or this year and realize you're actually putting some money aside. You can also go back into a couple other numbers I mentioned and put it into an investment account, right? Pay off some debt with it. Whatever it might be, find some areas in your patterns and in your budget where you can move some money around there. The 25% rule I think is great. By the way, that's in our course as well. When you go through that on number 1, on the debt course, we talk about that more in depth. All right, number 8, develop a will or a trust. Talk with an estate planning attorney, work with a financial advisor to find this. I think when we talk about growing and saving money, it's also really good to protect money. And this is true, really at most stages of your life, but obviously if you're married or have a family and whatever age you are, I think having a trust or something, I call it the 6 feet under clause, like what you want your money to be doing when God calls you back up. It's a good one to kind of consider and think about here starting the year. All right, number 9. This is gonna be an open one here, but start investing, okay? There's no better time than now. Now, when I talk about starting investing, again, I do think it's important to sit with an advisor on this or talk through it, because if you still have some debt or you have some lingering things going on, look at that first. But I do think finding some budget, back to one of the numbers as well as some patterns to put some money there, I think starting that out is a really good philosophy there. And again, use your financial literacy to be able to, get your education up on that, find, someone you can work with, which actually leads me into number 10 and the final one here. And let's find a financial advisor. I mean, this is essentially saving the best for last here, right? It kind of dovetails off our last one is if you want to work with someone and you want to figure out, how do I do all these things? This is a great list, Brad. I love it. Great. Thanks for the ideas. How do I go and execute? Well, number 10 is actually a great way to execute it, right? Because it helps you with financial literacy. If you find a good and competent one, it helps you with some of the items and the rules of thumb, if you will, around savings. It helps you focus on your debt and things like arbitrage, like how much you're paying on debt versus how much you can return in your stock returns or other investments. You can play all those things out, and it's really good sounding board. And again, no matter what age or stage you're in, it's also good to start building a relationship, because as your wealth builds, so will your questions, so will maybe your anxieties and your fears. So you want to make sure you have a trusted relationship that you can lean on and really find that person you want to be in a foxhole with, because there will be markets in your career, I can promise you, based on history, right? There will be some volatile times. And so you want to make sure you have a plan that you feel comfortable with and someone you can talk to about it and you know what you're going for, and there's a trust there. So I think those are all really important to go through. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that list today. If you did, make sure to subscribe to our show so you don't miss a single episode. And as I always say, always remember to make your money matter.